Okay. Hey guys. So welcome to Empowered Elite's team call for May 24th. I had Miss Danielle Whitford hop on here tonight, and just one thing I want to say quickly before we get started is that if you want a team shirt, especially if you're coming to Summit, please make sure that you post on the comments, in the comments on the team page, the shirt size you need, because I'm going to be ordering those tonight. And before we dive in, does anybody have any recognition?
I do.
Shout out this week.
I do.
Go
I don't have on, but Kat Dixon is a diamond.
Woo-hoo. And that's super huge. Congratulations, Kat, which also means that Laura Gallup is 3-star qualifying, which is huge. And if you guys don't know, once you get into star diamond ranks like that, Laura will have to hold that for the next 5 weeks, and then she will be officially a 3-star, which is huge. She is leading her coaches to create their own success. So congratulations, Laura and Kat. Does anybody else have anything that they want to shout out this week? No? Okay. Alrighty. Since this is a pretty big topic and we do kind of have a lot to cover, we're just going to go ahead and get started. Danielle, if you quickly, because there might be some coaches on here that don't know anything about your story, and just for everybody that's on, Danielle and I had a call today and kind of outlined for like major components of sharing the coaching opportunity, and how to do so that you guys can really get confident in doing this. So we're going to be kind of going back and forth. But before we get started, I would love if you would just share quickly a little bit about how your story started and how most of you almost threw in the towel, and then how you really dove and went all in, because I think that's really awesome to share.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm happy to. Hi, guys. I'll give you guys the abridged version because I could talk about this all night. But so my coaching story starts actually in July of 2013 is when I signed up as I call it hobby coach. I wasn't really a discount coach. I really did come in for the business as well as the health and fitness side of it. I had been on my health and fitness journey prior to that. After my daughter Lily, who's now 5, oh my God, she's now 5. After she was born, I got into, trying to change my life because I was just about 300 pounds when I had her. And I knew it was something that needed to change. So I had done things my way for a while, for about a year and a half, because I, was stubborn, and I wanted to figure it out myself, my big girl self, even though I had no idea what I was doing. And then I plateaued because I had been following like Weight Watchers and going to a gym, but the gym, the personal trainer had different hours from me, and I was working full time, and it just I little by little didn't go to the gym anymore. And then Weight Watchers is great. I don't diss it at all because it got me started, but at least then their program it didn't have as big of an emphasis on actual healthy eating. So I sought out other options, and I had discovered Beachbody kind of along the way. I followed other pages that had, talked about Shakeology and Beachbody and these programs. I was like, oh, what's that? I got connected to my coach, who was wonderful because I was the customer everyone hated, where, I told her I would sign up, she'd send me a link, and then I wouldn't do it, and I'd act like I fell off the face of the planet. So when people aren't responding to you guys, it's not you. It wasn't because of my coach. That's not why I didn't respond. I didn't respond because I was embarrassed that I was reneging, that I was saying I was going to do something and then didn't do it. So don't take it personally. But eventually I just got sick of it. So T25 was coming out. So I bit the bullet and did it with T25. And within 4 weeks of doing T25 and drinking Shakeology, that was all I had changed. 21 Day Fix wasn't even out yet. I wasn't even following their meal plan. I was still going to Weight Watchers. I got off my plateau, and I hit my 50-pound loss mark. So like I said, I was a hobby coach. So I hit Success Club my first month, but then after that I didn't do anything because I wanted it all to come to me. I didn't want to have to do the work. I thought this was if it was going to happen, it would just happen, and it wouldn't be, I wouldn't have to get uncomfortable to do it. Right. Well, I found out, so that was all in July, August, and then I kind of petered off in September and October, and I just kind of was like, well, that's because it's an MLM. It's never going to work. It works for other people, but it doesn't work for me, right? And then I found in October that I was pregnant with my second daughter, Valerie. And so then I definitely threw in the towel. I was like, well, if it wasn't working before and now I'm still overweight and I'm pregnant, like there's no way this is going to work. And you guys have to understand that when I was on the team then, Team Drop the Cookie, there were like no moms yet. There were basically 0 moms on the team. Definitely not pregnant moms. Like I was the first like mom really that was there. It was before Liz had babies. Like it was, I mean, really. So I was just like, well, I can't do this now. And so I actually submitted my cancellation form beginning of November. And Liz, being the wonderful coach she is, she reached out to me and was like, girl, what's going on? Because, of course she, like how many of us can relate to this with our coaches, that like she saw so much potential in me and I didn't see it yet. My mind, my heart weren't open to it yet. So I explained to her, well, I'm pregnant and I haven't told anybody yet because it was really early. So obviously I can't do this yet. And she was so wonderful. She said, I totally support whatever you decide. She's like, but you obviously don't get it yet. Like you don't understand the power of what's in front of you. And whatever it was in that moment spoke to me in the right way. And I withdrew my cancellation. Praise Jesus. So I withdrew my cancellation, but I didn't actually even start coaching it. I just withdrew the cancellation. I was like, well, I'll just pay the $15 fee every month and we'll just, I'll just wait it out. Any of you that have been pregnant, this was first trimester, like I was so exhausted. I was like falling asleep, standing up. Like it was just like insane. Right. So I just couldn't even fathom the idea of doing this right now. Well, fast forward a little bit. So that was November. January of 2014 was when everything changed. I like to say I was a corporate chump. That's kind of what I refer to that life as for me. I was a corporate buyer. On paper, it was a great job, good benefits, great pay. I had just gotten my MBA a couple years before that. I had always planned on being the career mom. Like I always planned on having that working outside the home life, right? When Lily was born, it completely shifted my mindset. Like I wanted so desperately to be home with her. And I had built a life where that wasn't possible. I had 6 figures in student loans, credit card debt up the wazoo, like just so much, debt that like that was never going to be, I made twice as much money as my husband. Like there was no way that I could stay home with my kids. So now I'm pregnant with my second, working in this corporate job it's not that I hated the job. I just wasn't passionate about it. And the fact that I couldn't be home with my kids because I had to go to that job made me hate it that much more. So I had kind of, over the years, after Lily was born and while I was pregnant with Valerie, I was like, well, this is just the way it is, right? But something in those 6 months of being signed up as a coach, even though I wasn't, being a part of the community, like slowly it started to seep into my brain as something that was possible, but not enough to make me take the leap. I know Keith Callahan says that it's either inspiration or desperation that will get you to take that leap and do something to change your life, right? So I was already inspired, but not enough to make a change. In January 2014, I was desperate enough to make the change because I was informed that I would have 2 days of sick time for the year, even though I was a salaried employee. I have a kid in daycare full time. I'm pregnant. I'm going to have another baby. He's going to be in daycare full time. Like that's just obscene, right? I had to work from home one day. My job, corporate buyer, all I really needed was my phone and my laptop, which I could take home with me. I live in Wisconsin where it gets really cold, like really, really cold, -30 with the wind chill. Just really cold. And her daycare was closed. I worked from home that day. I nailed it. I remember sitting in front of the fireplace thinking, gosh, if I could just live my life like this every day, life would be great. And I went to work the next day and I got reprimanded for missing work. Even though I did everything I was supposed to, even though, I was nailing it, I got reprimanded. And it was like, I remember walking back to my desk like, what the hell? Like, this is not how life is supposed to be. This is not going to get easier. Like, this is going to get harder. I'm like looking at my belly like, hello, this is not going to get easier. So and I remember, in those moments, of desperation, like I remember going on my computer in my office at my job and like going to like job search sites, right? Like I was like, legit work from home. And it's like, of course, nothing comes up when you type that in, right? I'm just like banging my head against my keyboard, basically saying, what the hell, what am I going to do? And, feeling defeated, I went on Facebook, because that's what you do when you're depressed, right? Is you just mindlessly scroll Facebook. And I remember praying so hard, like, God, give me a sign, like, show me this cannot be the way life is supposed to be. And I kid you not, I went on Facebook, and I swear everything I saw was a post from a Beachbody coach. Colleen Curtis, formerly Eddie, signed up at the same time as me. Annalisa Hurley signed up at the same time as me in July of that year. And, they're posting all these awesome things, and they seem so happy, and Liz seems so happy. And it's like it's smacking me in the face. Like, hello, it's right in front of you. Like, if you want to make a change, it's there. And in that moment, it clicked. I sent Liz a message. I was like, okay, I'm all in. I don't know what that means. I don't know what I have to do to be all in, but I'm all in. So tell me what I have to do. I set a goal of quitting my job a year from that date, and I knew it was going to be scary, and I knew it was going to be hard, but I did it. I was like a week shy of it, I think. So February 9th was my last day working in corporate. I've been home and that was 2015. I've been home with my kids ever since. So this opportunity, it has crazy power, you guys. Like, I just want you to understand that what Dana and I are going to share with you guys tonight about how to invite to this opportunity. I know Dana's going to touch on this, but like, it is such a gift. Whenever I take a moment and reflect on where I was 4 years ago and where I am today, the life I'm living today would not have been possible without this opportunity. Like, I'm not even exaggerating. I'm not blowing smoke up your ass. Like, I'm being real with you. Like, it would not have happened. And I realize there's kids on this call, and I'm really sorry. I swear like a sailor, even when my kids are around. So I'm trying to work on that. So I'm really sorry. If they swear in front of you, you can just blame me. It's fine. I'll put like dollars in your swear jar or whatever. And like this year has been such an eye opener for me, because my husband actually lost his job in February of this year. And we had planned in the next year on bringing him home anyway. He has some businesses he wanted to pursue and some other avenues, and I wanted to make that possible for him. And he lost his job, and instead of freaking out and being the people who are like, well, crap, now what do we do? We're excited. Like, people talk to us about it, we're smiling, because, now he has the chance to follow his dreams, and he's home with me every day, and it's crazy awesome. And again, none of that would have been possible without this, like none of it. So just remember how big of a gift this is, and that if you work really hard, you can have it too.
I love it. So incredible to me how you threw in the towel and then came back like that. It just shows that timing really is everything.
Yep.
I think the first thing I want to mention, because I just have a couple like side notes that I want to throw out there before we cover these 4 sections. And it's just kind of what she just talked about, but I'm going to ask you right now to think about if you woke up tomorrow and everything that Beachbody has brought into your life is ripped away. So you don't have Shakeology, you don't have the workout programs, you don't have the support system, you don't have the friendships, you don't have the team camaraderie, you maybe don't have personal development, maybe, if you're starting to earn some income, you don't have that backing and that cushion. You don't have that hope for the fact that you can change your future. For whatever reason you're here, you know exactly what it is when I say that, but you don't have that hope anymore that something can be different for you, right? How would that make you feel? Because for me, it's like getting kicked in the gut 17 times. I can't imagine what my life would be like without this opportunity and all of the blessings that it's given me for my life. And so I want you to think about that when you're out there and you feel this fear of inviting to this opportunity. And with a show of hands, would you raise your hand if inviting to coaching is scary or uncomfortable to you? Yes. Okay. Because I want you to remind yourself of what that feels like that gut punch right there. If that was all taken away from you, when you have this fear of inviting people to this opportunity, I want you to think about the gift that you are not giving someone. Because imagine if your coach had never been brave enough to invite you into this opportunity, or ask you to get into a sneak peek, or ask you to join a challenge group where you started to see the bigger picture and develop that belief, and something clicked for you too, right? That is potentially what we're stealing from people when we don't have the courage to invite to this opportunity. So instead of thinking, what are they going to say? What are they going to think? You know, what are people on social media going to think about what I'm talking about? I want you to think about what happens if you don't. What happens if you don't? And then the other side of that is, and I actually heard this if you're in Liz's Fearless Recruiting group. She said this today. I was watching it again, and it really just kind of stuck out to me. And it's something that, Danielle, you actually said at the beginning of talking, but she said, if you're not inviting to this and you're not sharing the coaching opportunity, then this is just a hobby for you. This is not something that is ever going to be full-time to the potential that you're capable of it being if you are not inviting to this opportunity. It is just a hobby. So that's a gut check and a reminder to us all that if we want more out of this and we want it to become more and we want to give that gift to others, that we need to start getting fearless about it, right? And reminding ourselves the gifts that we have to give of life change when we're sharing this opportunity. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is sharing the coaching opportunity on social media. So before we dive into the couple topics that we have about that, I just wanted to say that if you have never sat down and do this, first of all, get out your notes, get out your pen and paper so you can jot this stuff down. But if you've never done this, it's a really great exercise, and it's good to do it every so often just as a reminder to yourself. But sit down and think about the top 10 ways that being a challenger or coming into Beachbody has changed your life. And then on the flip side of that, write down 10 ways that becoming a coach has changed your life. So is it the friendships and the community, the support, the fulfillment? Maybe you don't feel that in your corporate career. Maybe you're a stay-at-home mom and you've never felt like you were doing something that was your own or something that mattered. You know, the hope of the financial opportunity or having more freedom in your life to spend time with people you love. Whatever it is for you, write down those 10 things, because those are important things to think about when you are sharing on social media. Danielle, do you want to share the 4 things that we talked about earlier?
Okay, I have 6 things written down, but yeah, I'll
go for it.
Okay, so Dana wanted me to talk to you guys tonight about how I share about the coaching opportunity on social media. So one thing I want to share is that it's important to kind of leak coaching in wherever you can. Like, I used to do this in the beginning, but I've strayed away from it a little bit, but I don't always write a super long-winded post about coaching. Like, that's not the only time I talk about coaching. I leak it in wherever it makes sense in my life. So if it's as simple as, you know, I'm going to gym class with my daughter and it's a cute picture of her in her gymnastics clothes and we're going on 9 o'clock in the morning on a Wednesday, I'll post that and say how it wasn't possible before. If, you know, one of my challengers is kicking butt and I'm sharing about that, I'll share about how awesome it is to do something that feels good, that, you know, helps people, you know, that genuinely fills my heart. So, you know, leak it in wherever you can. Don't just make it this long-winded, I'm, you know, posting about a coach sneak peek coming up. Like, if the only time you ever talk about coaching is in that right hook post, if you guys have heard of the jab, 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 right hook philosophy, I'm sure. But I won't go into that. But anyway, so yeah, so like if you're only ever posting right hooks, you're not going to get anywhere. You have to have the jabs too, the pieces that are a little more subtle to get your point across. Also, show your face. I know that's something that Dana and I didn't really address, but I think it needs to be addressed, especially with newer coaches. Like, you need to show your happy, smiling face. People that come to me that want to do what I'm doing, usually it's, you seem so happy. You look so happy. You look so fulfilled. You look so whatever. Like, it's about how I look on social media. And granted, I know social media is kind of a highlight reel. We all know that. But like, they see the happiness coming through in my pictures because I'm showing my happy, smiling face, right? Don't just post quotes. Don't post like, you know, stock photos, which I'm sure you guys all have heard that from Dana before, but I'll reiterate it. Like, when you're posting about coaching, post a cute picture of you and your kid, you know, a picture of you and your family, a picture of you, you know, in front of your computer or something. Like, post pictures that, you know, showcase what you're doing. I know that in the beginning of coaching, like when I first started, it was really hard to post about my successes as a coach, because I hadn't really seen any yet. Like if you're just starting and you haven't earned any money, or you're not where you want to be in this business, like you're not a 6-figure earner, you're not a star diamond coach, you're not, like you're thinking of all the things you're not, you have to think about where you are now and where you were when you started. So like, even if you only earn $20 in your bank account this week, like how much could that help someone else that you're talking to? Like when I first started, $20 could put gas in my tank. Like it could, go toward our electric bill. Like it could do something for my life. So share that, like be really excited about that, about how just because you're helping people, you're able to pay off your electric bill, your cable bill, or whatever, go, to the zoo with your family and not have to worry about it. It seems really insignificant, maybe to you right now, but to someone else, that can mean everything. And then share where you're going, like share your vision for your life. I talk all the time about how I wanted to bring Zach home. I talked all the time about wanting to be home with my kids before I actually did it. And the beauty of that, you guys, is if you're serious about this, which I assume you are because you're on this call, if you're serious about this and you're sharing where you want to go, as you accomplish that, people are going to take note. Like they're going to say, oh, she said she wanted to pay off her credit cards. Oh, and she paid off a credit card today. That's pretty cool. Like that's legit. So take it as like an accountability piece for yourself. When you share your vision openly with the world, it builds trust in a totally different way. And it's going to force you to really stick to that. You don't want to be a liar. I never want to be called a liar. So of course I'm going to pursue that wholeheartedly. To go along with that, make sure that you're sharing honestly about the opportunity. And this is something I didn't learn until way later. I mentioned how social media is kind of a highlight reel. Don't just post the highlights. Talk about how much work this takes. I mean, like, post everything from a positive, reflective point of view. Like you always want to post a solution to your problems, not just your problems, right? But talk about how, like, okay, my kids are in bed and I'm staying up an extra hour because my dreams are worth it. Like, because what I'm building is so much bigger than an extra hour of sleep. Because if you want to attract hard workers into your business, you need to be transparent about the fact that they can't be like I thought I could be when I came into this, which is like, I'm just going to show up and that means that I'll make all the money and be home with my kids, right? No, like you have to do the work. You have to get uncomfortable. So share that. If you only ever post about health and fitness and your challenge groups, guess what? You're only ever going to attract challengers. And that's not a bad thing. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. We want challengers. And I know Dana's going to talk about that piece and converting challengers into coaches. And that's a big deal. And that's great. You should totally talk about that stuff. But you also need to be planting seeds about coaching. Because while those people who are thinking about becoming challengers are watching you, they're also looking at you and saying, coaching, I wonder if I could do that. So then when they come into your challenge group, they're already in the back of their mind thinking, maybe I could do that. That seems like something I could do. That's interesting. It's all about planting seeds. When you're posting on social media, your goal isn't to get someone to say yes because of that post. Your goal is to get them to pay attention. It's to get them to take note of what you're saying so they keep taking note. Okay, so one other thing I want to share is I told Dana this and I think she was a little surprised, but I remember in the beginning when I was sharing about coaching, I was actually scared of people saying yes to me. Like I was actually scared if I invited someone and they were going to say yes to me, I was scared because if they said yes, like I'd have to figure I'd have to figure it out. I'd have to like know how to train them. I'd have to, create a getting started right process. I'd have to, get uncomfortable. And that was really scary. Like suddenly I felt like their fate was in my hands and I'm like, what am I going to do with that? You guys have to be confident. Okay. Be confident in what you're offering. Be confident that you have something to offer. If that person is coming to you, it's because they relate to you. There are 400,000 of us Beachbody coaches. Like if they wanted someone else, they could find someone else, but they talked to you. So if they're interested in it because you're talking to them, feel proud and feel confident and know that they're probably part of your tribe. Like they're attracted to you because there's something about you that resonates with them. And just own that and give them what you can. Give them everything that you have to offer and trust that if it's meant to be and they're going to see success, guess what? They could do it with or without you. The fact that they have you is a big benefit. So don't be scared of the yes. If you find yourself feeling like that, don't feel that way. I'm sure Dana's given you guys lots of resources to be able to create those getting started right processes. And if you have any questions, I'm sure that your team can help you out. And once you have those systems in place, it gets a lot easier. So I'm a big fan of those systems. I think that's all. Did I miss something, Dana? Is that all I had?
Nope, that was everything. Except I wrote down one more thing that I was going to say, especially when you're a newer coach. because I recall doing this a lot because I had like no idea what to share. But like, just share what you're doing. Like a lot of people are like, I don't know what the hell to share like about coaching. And I'm like, well, you share what you're doing right now. So like when you're working, like Danielle said, if you're making time before you go to bed to put time into your business, like share it. If you're making a video for a training, or you're making an outline, or you're, you know, creating ideas of systems you want to make for your team, like you can share that you're creating things, like run a team. You can just share when you're getting on team calls, like whatever it is that's pertinent to what you're doing, share those things, because those are really important things too.
And if you're sharing about your challenge group, like you can share that, like share like how fun it is for you to run a challenge group, how cool it is to be surrounded by a community of awesome women or awesome people, like sharing that. I think that really helped. Like we often, I mentioned this to Dana earlier when we were talking, and we sometimes take for granted the community that we have. Like I said, I came from corporate America, at least in my experience, 98% of the time is nothing like what we have with Beachbody. It's nothing like the team you are blessed to be on. Like it is nothing like this. It is backstabbing. It is gossip. It is stepping on whoever you can to get to the top. Like it's me, and not team. So sharing that is really refreshing for people to know, like I don't think I've ever personally in my entire life been around and been friends with so many women who I actually genuinely like and get along with. Like there's no gossiping. There's no like, you know, weird cattiness. Like I've literally found a tribe of women that I'm so blessed to call my friends and to get to work with every day. And I don't just mean my team. I mean Dana and other like of my peers from this downline, and even like outside of our downline. So sharing about that really resonates with women, I think, because how many of you have worked jobs where you felt that way, where you felt picked on, or, you know, like the water cooler gossip or whatever. Like, I mean, that shit happens everywhere. It's the worst.
Not even just at work though, just in life in general, finding true solid friends, especially as you get older. Jesus. It's priceless. And the last thing that I wanted to throw in there about that, because you briefly mentioned this, but if they don't understand what Danielle was saying about the jab, 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 right hooks, is like those little things that you're breadcrumbing in, like, oh, you know, like a Friday morning, I get to go to Declan's end of school party, and I'll talk about that, right? And then, you know, like I just tonight am making a post about a sneak peek, but like earlier in the month when he was sick and he had to be home for a day, I shared how grateful I was to be able to stay home with my kid and not have to ask permission or miss work or fall behind or whatever. As a single mom, that's priceless to me. But those little things that you're breadcrumbing in are your jab, jab, jab. And then the right hook is when you actually do an invite to a sneak peek, or to say we're running a new coach boot camp, or whatever it is that you're actually inviting people into. But it's very important that you have the balance of both, because if you're not sharing what you're doing and like how it's impacting your life, most people are not going to bat an eye when you just throw out an invite to it, right?
Okay. Can I address what Megan typed in the chat?
Yeah, go for it.
So I just saw Megan wrote something that says, I feel like this business is a lot of work. It's rewarding, but sometimes I feel a little crazy for doing it. So my biggest fear is finding someone crazy enough to do it too. Well, the funny thing is, like,
crazy, apparently.
Yeah. Well, one thing I wanted to say to that, I was actually just thinking about before I saw that, is kind of brand related. Like when you're posting on social media, own who you are. Like I said, I swear a lot. I used to apologize for it. I used to tone it down on social media because I tried to fit that mold that I felt like I was supposed to fit. And the funny thing is I didn't start finding people that I actually jived with until I started owning who I was, swearing being part of that. And you know, you say you're scared to find someone crazy enough to do it too. Well, I say it's exciting to find someone who's crazy enough to do it too, because when I started finding those people who got it, it didn't feel like work. Like it doesn't feel like work when you're working with people who understand you and get you, who become like your instant best friends because you guys just jive so well.
Right.
So don't be scared of it, because if it's the right person, it's not going to feel like work. It's not going to suck your energy dry. It's going to be amazing, which is why it's so important for you to share who you really are on social media. As scary as that is, you might offend some people, you might turn some people off, but guess what? It's worth it to weed them out now than to think that they're going to be on your team, you're going to put all this energy into them, and then find out that you guys just don't work well together, or that they aren't part of your tribe, right? Save that energy for the people who deserve you and the people who are supposed to be part of your team, okay?
And I think another comforting thing in that is like the doubt of will you find people, is that you have to look around, like within our team, within Team Drop the Cookie, just within the network in general. Like there's 500,000+ of us that are just as crazy passionate about this. It's just about you finding those needles in the haystack in your own networks per se. So we're all out there. We've all been found, so we're out there. Okay, so on to the second portion of this is, and this is honestly my personal, in my experience, the best way that I've had success with sharing the coaching opportunity, and that is converting challengers into coaches. And it's funny that that is what I, feel works best for me, because that was not how I started. I was someone that dove into coaching really quick on from the get-go, without really fully having gone through a challenge group or a transformation. But I, like Danielle mentioned, I had the desperation, and I saw the bigger picture, and I saw what it had done for other people. So I didn't really need all that yet. It just kind of went hand in hand when I started. But with sharing the coaching opportunity with challengers, the biggest thing you have to remember in general all across the board, but especially with this, is keeping it simple. Like, I think a lot of times we really overcomplicate what we should be saying or how we should be inviting, or we overanalyze what our messages say, instead of just really keeping it simple. So the first thing that obviously is extremely important here is getting someone in with the right RAM, with Shakeology, with the nutrition plan, explaining the importance of the combination of all those things and the support of leaning into a challenge group and really plugging in and being active and participating. Because the more that they lean into the community of support, and the more that they really stick to their program, their meal plan, drinking their shake, the better their belief is going to be, the deeper that belief is going to run for them. And if you're like most of us, once you feel that transformation and once you start to see those changes and how it impacts your life, it's almost like that belief is instantly just developed. Like it just comes out of nowhere, and it's something that you become crazy passionate about, right? Because it is changing your life. So given that you are doing your best to give your challengers an absolutely incredible experience, then you can have full confidence that when you are talking to them about coaching, that, it's really just, is it right for them? Is it the right timing? And keep it simple in your talking to them about it. So, for example, when you have a challenger that's gone through a challenge group and they're starting to see great results and they're feeling more energetic and they're seeing it rub off positively on their family, and their friends and family are commenting on their progress and they're really excited about it, and perhaps they're really active in your group and they're supporting and encouraging other people, right? Those are people that become incredible coaches and incredible advocates for what we do. So it can be as simple as reaching out in a message, over the course of a couple weeks, and encouraging them and just saying, hey, I see what you're doing in our challenge group. You're super active. You're posting incredible meals. You're so supportive of other people. You are so consistent. But whatever it is that you see them doing, praise them for those things. Let them feel noticed, because guys, remember that recognition is the fourth vital behavior, and that's not just for coaches. It's for challengers too. So encourage them, raise them up, give them compliments for what they're doing well. Help them with the things that they're struggling with so that they can really have the best experience, and so that they know that you're really there for them as a coach. And then it's as simple as offering to them. So saying, hey, I see what you're doing. You're having an incredible experience. You're doing a lot of what a coach already does. Have you ever actually considered, because I think you'd be incredible at it? Like literally that simple, and just see what people's responses are. And a lot of times, I'm trying to think who's on this call of my coaches that it kind of happened like that with you, Jordan. I don't think you heard any of that, but Jordan sent me a picture in a little black dress on Thanksgiving Day, I guess 2 years ago. and was like, oh my God, I feel incredible. And she looked amazing and she had great results. And I was like, have you ever thought about being a coach? And she was like, well, actually, kind of. And that was kind of the beginning of it all, right, Jordan? So keeping it really simple, like you never know who is already thinking about it or who's already wondering what you do or if they could do it too. And you just have to be brave enough to ask them and really disconnect from the outcome. If they say no, you've planted the seed, like Danielle said. And if they say yes, ask them if you can set up a call to talk more about it, or if you can pop them into a coach sneak peek that you're running to see the behind the scenes of what we actually do. And then I guess the real key to putting this all together is, hold on, I'll read that in a second, but is that if challengers already have this belief, right? They have the belief in the programs, the products, the community, the support, the accountability. The real thing that's going to make it all click for them is helping them dig into finding a why. Like, what is it in their life that they want to see change? Or what is it in them that would like to feel more purpose-filled or more fulfilled? Or what's going to make them take action to start actually sharing this belief that they now have, right? Because if you combine that belief and you combine it with a solid enough why, then people are really off on the right foot. So keep that in mind. When you're talking about them, you can ask simple open-ended questions of how do you think this could change your life? Like, do they want to get their Shakeology paid for? Do they have friends and family that they think, they could impact their lives as well? Because pretty much everybody does. But like thinking simple and small in the beginning and helping them start to develop that bigger why and that bigger picture. Is that it, Danielle, for that? Do you have anything to add to that? Does anybody have any questions about either one of the things we've covered yet? What did you say, Jordan? Jordan said she just had that happen with somebody. Yes. Happens a lot. Okay, and I just want to mention one other thing in terms of this that I just thought of because it's really important. But it's don't get discouraged if people say no, because a lot of times people are going to tell you no multiple times before they ever come around to it, but just encourage them to stay on track where they're at and let them continue to develop that belief and that trust in you and kind of watch what you're doing and see what's going on in challenge groups. And eventually over time, a lot of people do end up coming around, but it might not be the initial time that you ask them. So don't let that discourage you from continuing to ask. It's the same as following up with people that say no originally to a challenge group and then they say yes, right? Follow-ups are so key for this as well. Any questions on either one of those before we go into the next section? No? Okay. The next part of this is sharing behind the scenes, and this is ridiculously important. Just like when you're sharing about challenge groups, you can't just be sharing on social media about it and not be talking about it behind the scenes in one-on-one messages. I'm just curious, for a show of hands, is it harder for you to share about coaching on social media? Would you raise your hand? Or is it harder for you to share behind the scenes in one-on-one messages? So we're kind of half and half. Yeah, okay. Okay, Danielle, do you want to tag team this? And I'll start and then. Okay. Okay, so the first three things that you want to do before you even think about talking about this behind the scenes is that number one, you have to be confident. Like, you have to understand and really start to believe in the value that you have to share as a coach. And this is when Danielle said to me earlier that she was scared for people to say yes. And I was like, what? I was like, I've never heard somebody say that, but it makes total sense, because that means you have to figure out how to mentor somebody and how to lead them to do what you do, right? I think for me that I kind of felt the opposite, because I was like, shit, if I have to lead somebody else, that means I need to take it really seriously and I need to figure it out. So it kind of pushed me into that role of learning how to lead people. And that was exciting for me because I needed that. But the first thing, like I said, is that you have to know the value that you have to offer, and you have to have the belief in yourself as a coach, but also in the opportunity that you're sharing about people, just like we talked about in the beginning. Because that belief is going to come through in your conversations, and that confidence is going to come through as well. And if you don't really have that confidence, people are not going to be as responsive. I swear people feel your confidence. They feel your energy. Your words come out differently. So work on that if that's something that you struggle with. The next thing is sit down and write out a master list. So just like when you were a brand new coach and you had to sit down and you write out a list of 1 to 200 people that you think that you could help by having them join a challenge group, right? You want to think about doing the same exact thing for people that you think could benefit from the coaching opportunity, whether you think they could do it as a hobby or whether maybe they'd want to be full-time, right? There's a million different instances and a million different people that you can probably think of whose lives could change with this coaching opportunity. So write them down on a list. And the next thing is that out of that list, think about the people that are on there that you would ideally love to work with, that you would love to mentor, that you love their vibe. They're your people. They're people that you would ideally think of as your dream team. And Liz used to say this all the time, and I think there's a lot of truth to it, is that she says, you need to visualize yourself with these people on your team and working with them. And why do you want to help them, and why? Like, how do you think as a mentor that you can help them transform their life, and visualize that with those people? So create that dream team list. You want to go ahead, Danielle?
What part did you want me to share about?
If you talk about when people say no, like to shake right away.
Yeah.
Written down.
What's that?
I said that's what I have written down next. When people say no, when you're starting to tackle inviting from this list. If you don't know, I can talk about it. But
no, it's cool. No, I it's funny. I like when people say no. Like, it's funny. That sounds funny, but I didn't hear if you said, Dana, but that on average it takes 7 touch points for someone to say yes. So when someone says no, I've switched my thinking to, instead of looking at it like it's a negative, I look at it like, well, that's 1. Okay, well, that's 2. Like, I look at it like I'm just getting that much closer to convincing them that this is the right path for them. And I've also taken the approach, and maybe it's just because of how I got started. I mean, you guys heard my story, but because of how I got started, when people say no, I actually don't get offended by it. I don't take it personally, because I know better than anyone that they have to realize the potential that's in front of them. Like, they have to want it bad enough for it to work. Like, we all know that if your why isn't strong enough, like if you are kind of like, yeah, maybe I'll coach, like you're probably not going to see the kind of success that, that we all consider success. Right. So I think kind of turning your mindset, like changing your mindset and reflection on when people say no is really important. And I have also taken the approach of, when people tell me no, I will actually throw their goals and what they've shared with me back in their face. And I know that sounds really like abrasive, but really, like, if someone comes and says to me, oh my gosh, I want what you have. I want to be home with my kids. I want to quit my job. I want to do all these things. And like, they're talking about these amazing goals, so incredible. And I share this with them, and they balk at the price, or they, like they get, like, I don't know, like they get all hung up on it. I honestly tell them, like, you're telling me that you're going to let $160 stand between you and this incredible goal you just shared with me? Like, that seems kind of crazy. I mean, like, if you call it like it is, that seems kind of silly, right? If it would have been presented that way to me my first time, I'd probably been like, you're so right. Like, what the hell am I doing? Like, of course I'll do this. Because that's essentially what you're offering them. Like, you're offering them an entire business for the low price of $160. Like, I mean, really, that's like, I mean, talk about a deal. Like, I mean, think about that. So I don't really like, and I didn't start that way, you guys. Like, I used to be the person that people would come back with objections, and I'd be like, oh my God, what do I say? Like, how do I say it so they don't get offended? I don't want to push them away. But like, that doesn't do them any good. Like, if you coddle them the way they've been coddled their entire life by society, or by their family, or by their husband, or by their jobs, like, it's not going to change their life. Like, instead of you are the person that calls it like it is and says, you know what, like, if you take a chance on yourself and commit to making this work, think about what that means for you. Like, think about that. Like, really visualize how it would feel to live the life you just described to me. And what are you going to let stop you? The possibility that someone might judge you, the possibility that you might fail. Like, if you don't say yes, you're for sure failing. Like, you're for sure not going to do it. If I would have said no to this forever, guess what? I would still be working that corporate job. I would still only have 2 days of sick time every year. And my husband would be the one taking the brunt of all the sick kid days, right? I wouldn't be living the way I'm living. So, don't be afraid to push back on people when they say no. Like, give them a little bit of that. And then from a loving place, like, share your experience. I mean, I always share, I was like up to here in debt when I said yes. I put this on a friggin' credit card to sign up, which I'm not saying people should do that, but I'm just saying I wanted it bad enough that I would have given my left kidney to make it happen, right? When it came down to it, when I finally said yes, that's how desperate I wanted to do. That's how desperate I was to do it. So point that out to them. Be like, girl, I scrimped and saved. I put it on my credit card. Like, I totally understand financial issues. Like, I totally get that. And I'll be here when you're ready. But remind them of what they want, okay? Point that out to them. Don't be scared of it.
I love that. And I just want to add to it because I think as you go on and the better you get at it and the more you do, like, the easier it gets to be a little more ballsy and a little more forthright in your responses. But something that happens to me a lot, and maybe it happens to you guys too, is that I have a lot of people that are like, I just can't afford it, or that they don't have time to do it. And I've learned how, instead of just saying, okay, like, maybe later it'll be better or whatever, I've started to ask them, well, if you don't change anything, what changes? Like, because realistically, no offense, but if you do nothing different, your finances are not going to change. If you do nothing different, you're never going to have more time in your life for anything. So, like, why not try something different that could help you have more freedom in your life in both of those aspects? Does it mean you're going to have to sacrifice a little bit and work hard and figure this out? Yes. But I always say, I'm like, if you find a reason that's important enough to you, then you figure out how to do it in your life, just like with challengers finding the time to work out, right? So just like Danielle said, like, it's okay for you to give a little bit of pushback in a loving way to remind people the potential of what they're capable of, because a lot of people don't have someone in their life that believes in them enough to let them know that they don't have to settle for okay anymore, for just good. Like, they can have great, they can have incredible. It's a choice, right? Seeing if there's anything else. Oh, the last thing that I wanted to talk about in terms of, I mean, all of this overall, but especially with your responsiveness behind the scenes, comes down to leading yourself first and leading by example, right? And we actually had a team call on this last week, but like, are you consistently showing up on your social media and sharing your journey? Like, sharing about coaching, sharing about what you're doing, sharing why you're excited, sharing how it's changing your life, like sharing about challengers and people on your team, or, whatever is relevant to you. Like, are you really showing up and giving people something to latch onto, that you are somebody that is credible and trustworthy, someone that they can, really dig into getting to know and like, and someone that they could foresee themselves saying, hell yeah, like, I really like this girl. I really like her vibe. I really like how positive she is. She has a lot she could teach me, or I believe that she could really be a great mentor for me, right? Because we kind of do size people up, whether we like to admit it or not, based off of what we're seeing, right? So be mindful of that. If you're really setting that example of, I guess a good way to put it, and I didn't think of this, but is ask yourself, would you want to be mentored by you? Would you want to be somebody who's a coach on your team? Okay. The last part of this is inviting to coach sneak peeks and follow-ups. Before we go into that, does anybody have any questions about behind the scenes, or like certain objections you're getting, or just struggles that you're having with sharing behind the scenes that you want to work through? I mean, I hear everybody say it all the time, so don't be shy. No? Okay. Okay, sneak peeks. So obviously, if you're not running your own coach sneak peek, you have a coach sneak peek to add to, whether it's mine or Taryn's or, whatever your upline team you're on, there's going to be coach sneak peeks that you can invite to. Coach sneak peeks are an absolutely incredible tool that can really help you share the opportunity without having to do a lot of explaining or a lot of work, because the way that they're structured, we cover all different aspects of it, from dispelling myths of coaching, to sharing how we earn money, to sharing why we love it, to sharing how it's changed our life, to sharing exactly what we do and how we run challenge groups, right? So your job is just to share that with enough people and invite people into something where they can see and feel that experience with their own eyes, right? So I just want to touch quickly, like kind of how I do it. And then Danielle, I'll let you share about how you do it, because I know it's a little different than me. So the first thing is that obviously sharing about it on social media, like we talked about, the jabs of breadcrumbing different things about coaching, and then the coach opportunity invite. So inviting to your coach sneak peek. So if you're on my team, we have one coming up on Sunday night. I would highly suggest that you post about it. But sharing about it on social media obviously is extremely important, because you never know who's watching, who might be interested. Now, behind the scenes, going through and thinking about challengers that you have, like we talked about, that you think could be an incredible fit for coaching, and just asking them, have you ever considered running a sneak peek with my team this weekend? I'd love to add you to it, and you can kind of just see what it's all about, right? And pop them into the coach sneak peek. The last thing is following up with people that you may have talked to about it before, or people that you think would actually be good with the opportunity that perhaps you haven't talked to about at all with, or that you're forming with. And a great way to kind of open that door to conversations, because a lot of people say like, well, I'm talking to people, but it hasn't really gone down that route yet, and I don't really know like how to bring it up or like how to talk about coaching. So it literally can be as simple as saying, are you on a health and fitness journey too? Or, hey girl, I've seen your post, you're super positive, or I see that you like to work out all the time. Are you a coach too? Because it immediately directs your conversation to talking about health, fitness, or coaching, right? And there's your open door to build that relationship and share a little bit more about what you do. Simple, not scary, not weird. You're just asking a question, right? Now, in terms of actually, for me, like what happens in those conversations about coaching, or when I follow up with people that have been in a sneak peek afterwards, because that is absolutely key. You can't just stick people in a coach sneak peek and then expect for them to come around and talk to you about it. It just doesn't work like that. So make sure that after you put people in a sneak peek, that you are checking in with them one-on-one and asking them what they thought. Do they have questions? Do they have fears? Do they have concerns? Is there anything that sparked their interest, or, had an aha moment for them? Like, what excites them about it, right? A good thing to really address with people is fears. And I've learned this over time, because a lot of times I kept getting objections about coaching, and I didn't really realize that it was just an underlying fear of like a fear of, I'm not fit enough, I don't have time, I work a really busy full-time job, I XYZ, insert whatever fear that people have or that we all had. If you ask that right from the get-go, you're going to be able to give them a simple perspective and opinion on why that fear is bullshit, or why it's not valid, or how you've overcome it, and really address it before it even becomes something that can be an obstacle that stands in their way, right? The last thing that really is flipping into the inspiration side of things is asking them, what would they actually like to see happen in their life? Like, what would they like to be different about their life? Would they like to have their shakes paid for? Do they have debt they want to pay off? Or would they ideally like to move their family to, be somewhere, buy a home, buy a dream car, whatever, travel more, be home with their kids? Like, start digging into those things of like, there's a lot of coaches on our teams who've worked really hard or are working towards changing their lives in amazing ways. What is something that you feel like you'd love to have more of in your life, or that you'd like to be different in your life? Because you can also share your story, but it's important to start to get an idea of why coaching would be a good fit for them, because that truly is different for everybody, right? So if you have that kind of inkling, then you're more able to speak to the opportunity and why it would be impactful specifically for them, rather than just broadly talking about coaching, because that's a lot to talk about. Danielle?
You covered most of what I guess I would cover. In terms of who I invite to a coach sneak peek, I always invite anyone that I've been talking to about coaching for the last like few months, usually, sometimes longer. I've had people join my sneak peeks multiple times, even if it's the same information, and then they say yes. Like, it just, again, has to hit them the right way, be the right thing to get to speak to them. I think what Dana said is really important to know why they're in there. And myth busting is what she was like. She talks about like what their fears are. I call that myth busting in my challenge or my coach sneak peek. Just, like, here's a myth about coaching, that you have to be perfectly fit, that you have to be a professional, that you have to have a ton of time, like those things, all the excuses that you hear all the time, and how we know that that's not true, right? Well, most likely that's what's holding them back if they haven't said yes yet, is one of those things. So it's important to share about those. Time management, like how did you work this business into your life, being the busy person you are? Because I guarantee you every single person on this call has a lot of other things going on in their lives outside of coaching, right? I always share my story in the coach sneak peek. You can't share your story enough. I know that's something Dana and I talked about too, and I didn't touch on this with social media, but always be resharing your story in different pieces of it. You don't need to have a word vomit post every time you talk about coaching, right? Same thing when you're talking to people or in your sneak peeks. Like, you don't need to share it all in one piece. Give them tidbits. Always be sharing it in different ways. Same thing in the coach sneak peeks, right? Something I wanted to say too, earlier we were talking about people saying no. I guess one of the other reasons that I don't get freaked out when people say no is because I've had people who've said no to me for like an entire year or two finally say yes and kick ass in this business. So I don't get freaked out by it, because I know eventually, if it's meant to be, they're going to come around. And maybe you haven't been around long enough to see that happen on your end, but trust that will happen. But it's important for you to stay consistent. Like, you always need to be checking back with them until they like literally give you the middle finger or block you. Like, you need to be, constantly checking in with them and following up and inviting them to groups and inviting them to coach sneak peeks and sharing about it, because it's going to hit them the right way eventually. Something I did want to say, and it kind of ties into inviting to coaching, but it's something I've used for a while now, and it kind of actually helps to get responses from people. If you ever have people that you've been talking to about challenge groups, coaching, anything privately, and suddenly they go silent, like your radio set, like they're like gone, and you've sent them 4 or 5 follow-up messages and they're just not responding to you, I will send them a message and say something super sweet and simple, like, hey girl, how are you doing? I realize that, it's been really hard for us to touch base recently, which kind of bums me out, because, you sounded so excited about whatever it was, like my challenge group, coaching, whatever. And I would love to help you get started, but if you've changed your mind, would you like me to take you off my contact list? Because then it does one of two things. Either they will respond and tell you, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, I've been so busy, please don't take me off your contact list. Most likely, that's what's going to happen. That's like my 9 out of 10, that's the response I get. And 1 out of 10, I will get a response that they'll say, you know what, yeah, if you want to take me off for now, this is what's going on in my life, I'm just not ready. I'm moving, I'm getting divorced, I'm having, issues conceiving, like something's going on in their life that made them change their mind. But it usually gets them to tell you what's going on. So it's not, yeah, exactly. Like, it's not, don't look at it like you're drawing a line in the sand, even though that's what it seems like. It's more just to get a response out of them. Like, I don't want to bug you. Like, I don't want to keep bugging you about this, but I know how excited you were. So tell me what you want me to do. So it kind of respects your time and it respects their time a little bit. And then those people, for me, when they say no, like the few that say, you know what, yeah, I'm just not feeling it, they stay on my follow-up list. Like, don't get me wrong, I don't just never talk to them again, but then they go on my like 3 to 6 month follow-up list instead of every month or every couple of weeks. So it gives you kind of a little bit of leeway that way. But in terms of coach sneak peek, I think, it's funny, we spend so much time talking about the best way to run a coach sneak peek, and you talk to 10 different coaches and you'll get 10 different responses on how to run the best coach sneak peek. The thing is, I don't think it's about how you run your coach sneak peek. I think it's about what you share, how you share it, and the passion that you feel for it comes through. Because I've done it. I mean, I've done live webinars on my Facebook page. I've done live, Facebook videos on my profile. I've done it through an event. I've done it through groups. I've done 3-day. I've done 5-day. I've done 1-day. I've done, countless different things. And the results are pretty much the same no matter what I do. As long as I switch up my content and I'm speaking from the heart, I will get good results, especially if I've formed relationships prior to that. If I just plug a bunch of people in there and we have not talked enough about it, they're not going to give two hoots what I'm saying, right? But if I plug them in and we've had a really good conversation and we've developed a relationship and they know what I'm about and they know kind of sort of what they're getting into and they have an open mind at that point, then they're most likely going to say yes by the end of it. So don't stress too much about how you do it. Just jump in with whatever feels right for you and go with it. Especially if it's your first one, you just kind of have to rip off the Band-Aid and do it. I remember being so scared to do my own. But once I did, I was so mad at myself for not doing it sooner. So just do it.
Love it. All of it. The last thing that I wanted to share in terms of this that I always do, that I probably only have been doing for the past year and a half, but it's really helped a lot, is that instead of just when I follow up after a coach sneak peek with no okay, so short and simple to kind of give this example is when you're inviting to a challenge group, right? I always start inviting to my prep week first. And then once that prep week starts, I start inviting to the actual challenge group start date. So I kind of am creating a sense of urgency without being pushy, that letting them know that it starts a week from now and I don't want them to miss anything, yada, yada, right? So it's the same kind of concept with inviting to a new coach boot camp after a sneak peek. So I always align my sneak peek so that it's the last week of the month, and then the new coach boot camp starts the beginning of the next month, right? And of course, if you're not running one, you can add to your upline teams. But I always follow up when I'm following up from sneak peeks. I start talking about these things that Danielle said, like myth busting, and talking about the fears and the misconceptions and the doubts and what this could do for them and what inspired them or whatever. But then I also let them know that starting at the beginning of the month, I actually have a new coach bootcamp training where I teach them the ropes of what it takes to be a successful coach. That it's not something where they're signed up and they're fed to the wolves and they have to figure it out on their own. They have the team setting, they have the support, they have the tools, they have the knowledge. They're basically hand-fed everything on a single platter of what they need to get started right as a coach. And for a lot of people, that really helps them take the plunge, because a lot of, beyond the fears that they have, a lot of it is like, holy crap, I don't know how to figure this out. I don't know how to do everything you do. It just seems overwhelming, whatever that is. So it really creates some reassurance for them. But it also kind of gives them a sense of urgency of okay, now you're interested. Now you've been in a sneak peek, or now you've been in a challenge group, and now you're in a sneak peek. So what's next? What's the actual step that's next to moving forward? So if that's not something you've been doing, I highly suggest that after you have people in sneak peeks, or after you talk about the coaching opportunity with them, to share and follow up with them every single time the week before you actually are starting a new coach training. And it can be as simple as, once they seem interested, saying, okay, awesome. Write me a little bio about you that you're excited about getting started, and I'll add you to my team pages, and then we'll get you in the training to really get started right on your coaching journey, right? Simple. Keep it simple, always. Does anybody else have questions? Or does anybody have questions? We haven't really gotten a lot tonight. I'm surprised. Okay. Thank you, Danielle. Oh, hold on. We got something. Had someone look at a sneak peek. It was a while ago. Yeah, I would follow up. It doesn't matter how long it's been. Absolutely.
As for how, Megan, I would just, well, it depends if that was something that you dropped the ball on, if it's something you should have followed up with them after and you didn't, or you followed up and they didn't respond, or the conversation died. It depends on how it died. But I would just come back and say, hey girl, I know you were interested in this a while ago. Just wanted to touch base with you and see what you're thinking. I do have this, mentorship coming up. I'd love to, chat with you about it if you're interested. Does that sound like something you'd be down for? Like, just get it started, be really like, I always take the approach of just like talking like I would to my friends. Like, I don't ever I'm not offensive. I'm not in your face. I'm not insanely professional. Like, I'm professional, but I'm not like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not trying to make a business transaction. I'm literally just trying to like see what's up. So that I would take.
True that. Not too professional. I like that.
You know what I mean? Like,
professional fun havers.
Right?
Okay. Well, if there is no other questions, I just wanted to say one last thing to close this call out. And actually, Sarah, you're on here, I think. Sarah posted this thing in our team page today, and I'm happy to share in whoever's team if you didn't see it, if you're not in our team page. But it was this excerpt about how our underlying fears and limiting beliefs are what actually make invites so hard, or like thinking about getting objections so hard, right? And to simply kind of dumb it down, because it was a longer descriptive paragraph, but it basically says that you kind of have to detach from those limiting fears and beliefs that you're giving power to a certain situation about. So like detaching from your fear of an outcome of what someone's going to say, or detaching to the fear of like, are they going to think you're crazy? Are they going to think you're trying to sell them something? Are they going to think you have ulterior motives? Like, and really like lean into the heart of thinking, I have the power to change somebody's life, or they could say yes to me and I could transform their future forever with the opportunity to mentor them, right? Like connecting more to the faith about it and the heart of it rather than the fear. And then remember that when you are inviting, when you're sending a message and you're asking a question, that the only outcomes are, is it a yes or is it a no? It's nothing more than that. It's a yes or a no. The only thing that makes it scary and intimidating and whatever fears and limits we attach to it is the things that are going on in our own minds, right? Like it's really simple if we allow it to be, and that we remind ourselves that that's how it should be, which is a process, but the more we practice, the better we get, right?
Dana, can I share one thing too on that note?
Yep.
Something that reminded me of is, and I know I said this when Dana and I were talking earlier, is that you have to think about where you're going, like what your vision is for you and your business. And think of it like when you invite someone, like you're looking at them like, if you want to come along, that's great. Like, this is where I'm going. This is where our team is headed. And we're going that way. Like whether or not you want to come along is totally up to you. But if you say no, I'm still going that direction. Like their yes or no holds no bearing on where you're going.
100%. I would love for you to come with me, but if you don't, we're still going. Yes. Love it. Love it. Questions, comments, anybody? Was that helpful? I hope. Everybody's just kind of blankly staring. I'm going to hope so. Okay. Alrighty, guys. Well, thank you for hopping on, and thank you so much, Danielle, for hopping on.
Bye, guys.
Have a
Thanks
good
for having
night,
me.
guys. We'll see you next week. Bye.